Hello and welcome to another edition of the Backyard Spin Weekly, where we don't just recap the top action of the week for you, but we also share some backstories on the players and the playmakers so that you have new sports and new athletes that you can follow and become fans of. That's what sports is all about. Now, this week is a bit different. I could not get hold of a co-host, and I thought that we have a good thing going. So why don't I just go alone and adapt a format a bit and give you the top 5 playmakers of the week instead of just the usual 3. With that out of the way, let's go and see what last week's action had in store for us. As always, we'll start with the playmaker picks. Playmaker is a community of passionate sports fans who want to go beyond just being fans and contribute, do something in the ever-growing business of sports, especially in India. To check out more, just head out to theplaymaker.org and most welcome to become part of this community. Now, as for our playmaker picks of the week, there are 2 of them. One is something from the just recently concluded Under-21 Euro Championships, which Germany won. There are a couple of players that we want to spotlight. A couple of players who stood out with their performances and are the ones that you should watch out in the future. One was Mecha and the other was Wirtz. I'm sorry, I'm not used to pronouncing these names, but now Mecha is someone who has played under 17 for England as well, and he shifted to Germany and is currently playing with Anderlecht club in Netherlands, and he is representing Germany in the Under-21 Championships. He emerged as the top scorer in the tournament, and he is someone who has risen through the ranks of the Manchester City youth program, having played with them. So he's someone to look out for the future. The other one, Wirtz is already a sensation. Florian Wirtz is already a sensation at Bayer Leverkusen. Now, he is unlucky to not have made into the senior team at Euro this year, but he made the most out of his chances at the Under-21 level. He scored a brace against the Dutch in the semi-final. Now, Leverkusen are a team that are known for their talent scouting, and in the NRW region, the northwest region of Germany, the clubs have a pact that they won't poach into each other's talents. Leverkusen, of course, are known for their scouting, having produced legends like Michael Ballack and Berbatov and Vidal. So they have their own system in place, but this for this guy, for Florian Wirtz, they broke that unspoken pact and poached him from the Cologne youth team. Now, Wirtz was someone who took Cologne to victory in Under-17 Bundesliga, and he's already shining through for Leverkusen, and very, very soon we will probably see him doing that at the national level as well. Now, I'm someone who is a fake Cologne fan, having spent a summer there, walking along the Rhine, sipping the Kolsch beer, visiting the stadium where Lucas Podolski at that point of time was still playing. So I feel a bit bad for them, but never mind. I'll live through that, and I look for these young talents to, as should you, look for these young talents to break through at the senior level. The other pick is the other playmaker pick is Devin Booker, who emphatically shut down any hopes of the Lakers come back and going through to the next round. So he scored an explosive 47 points in Game 6 against the Lakers, and took his team to the next round, the conference semis. That also meant that LeBron James had to bow out of round 1 for the first time in 17, 18 years. And of course, they are the defending champions, Braun and AD, and they also attracted even more hatred from the community because they sort of pulled out of the Olympics and passed out on the chance for the Dream Team redux. Braun added even more fuel to the fire by putting out remarks like he would play for the Tunes this summer rather than the Dream Team, which of course is referring to the Space Jam 2 movie that is coming out. So I think he has got to do something to placate the fans that clearly he's losing out of. Anyway, so this was the playmaker picks. Now, before we move into the top 5 that I have ready for you this week, let us just see one of the bench picks that I had, the player who could not make it to the top 5. And this is the tragic hero, Luka Doncic, right? So he is one man who stood tall amongst the ruins for the Mavericks. He was injured in Game 4. He was suffering a neck injury. He came back in Game 5 with 42 points and took Mavericks to just a game from beating another LA team. And he in fact did really well in Game 7 as well, scoring 47 points. But his efforts were in vain, and we'll hear more from that later. But we at least hope to see Doncic playing for Slovenia in the Olympics, even if we don't see Braun and AD being part of the Dream Team. Right, so that sets up for the top 5 of the week this week. So let us move into the top 5 playmakers of the week. At number 5, I have Ethan Horvath. Now, Ethan Horvath was a reserve goalkeeper for US in the CONCACAF finals between US and Mexico. It was a crazy match. It was a mad match with the probably all the US Mexico matches end up being like this, but a really passionate and over involved crowd that threw projectiles on the pitch, probably poor refereeing decisions. There were skirmishes on the ground itself. So it was as involved, as crazy as you can think of, right? So of course we know about Pulisic, who fresh from winning the UEFA Champions League with Chelsea. He came in here and scored the winner in extra time in a high charged atmosphere to win it 3-2 for the US. But for me, Ethan Horvath's save stood out. Now, I'll take a slight detour before I come to his save. I'm reading this book called The Miracle of Castel di Sangro. And if you're a football fan, you should read it too. This book is a first-person account of the American writer Joe McGinnis, who first became smitten by soccer, as he called it then, and then obsessed about it after seeing the 1994 FIFA World Cup that was held in the US. He took a particular liking for the Azzurri, the Italian national team, and he writes about how Baggio's miss haunted him for a long time, as it did about 9-10-year-old kids of my age at that point of time. Now, he becomes so much involved in and so much obsessed about football that a year later, when he discovers that the story of a really small club in a nondescript part of Italy, a town of just 5,000 people, that defied odds to rise about 5-6 levels in the tiers of the Italian league structure, they rose from the 6th tier to go to Serie B, which is just one level below Serie A. And all of that followed. Of course, it was a series of moments and a series of things that happened. But there was one moment that was critical, and I won't tell you too much about it because I really want you folks to read that book, and I won't spoil it for you. I won't divulge more. It's a really hilarious and a first person account of what madness in football looks like. But that miracle moment has some striking resemblance to what Horvath did in that match. It's of course nowhere as dramatic as the story that I've just narrated, but there were shades of that moment. So he came in the 68th minute because of an injury to the first team goalkeeper, and then in the extra time he saved a penalty kick from Mexico's captain, so that to preserve the lead that Pulisic had given, and set up an epic victory. So it was you should probably watch the YouTube highlights to see how crazy it was. But Horvath is my number 5 on the list. Right? Let us see how the story unfolds in the future. Is it as crazy as the book that I just mentioned you? Now let's move on to number 4 on my list for the week. This is with the Olympic season, right around the corner. And again, we have touched upon this in our previous episodes. I really hope, irrespective of whatever logistical issues are there, that the Olympic happens. Sifan Hassan broke a 5-year-old world record in the 10,000 meters event in an event in Holland. Now she's an Ethiopian born Dutch citizen. She moved from, it's a good heartwarming story of a refugee fleeing as a 15-16-year-old fleeing from Ethiopia and then becoming a Dutch citizen and discovering the joy of running and becoming really good at it. She now owns the world record for the mile, for 5 kilometer, and she's also the world champion in 1500 meters and 10,000 meters. She, as it happens with a lot of runners, she isn't devoid of controversy. So her coach in 2019 in the Doha championship, she became the first runner to win the 1500 meters and the 10,000 meters at a world championships. Now she did it days after, just a few days after Alberto Salazar, who was her coach, he was banned for 4 years in the US in the anti-doping case. Now she was Hassan was vehement that she had nothing to do with that. That she was a clean athlete, and she also sort of pointed out that she was top of the rankings in the junior championship in 2014-15, a couple of years before she went to Salazar's Nike Oregon project. So we just hope, for the sake of already there are a lot of stories that come up around doping and Olympics. So we just hope, for the sake of it, that she is one of those folks who did it on her own accord, and we'll certainly be on the lookout for this event in the Olympics. Right. So that rounds up my number 4 pick of the week. For number 3, we move from the crazy chanting of the Mexico-US game, from the passionate and overflowing stands there, to a more quiet and more gentlemanly applause that Devon Conway of the Kiwi batter got last week for scoring a double century on debut. By doing that, he broke a 125-year record incidentally held by our own Ranjit Singh ji for scoring the highest number of runs on debut in England. right? But what was more interesting was his backstory. So he is someone who is of South African origin. He about 4 or 5 years ago, he was a struggling South African domestic cricketer, and in a random moment of it's just one of those things that you if it falls into place, it's very tough to believe it. But he mentions that he was just playing golf with his partner, and he suggested that why don't we move to New Zealand? And his partner said that if you're serious about it, let's just forget about everything else and just move there and have a fresh start. And that's what he did. So he could be a Kolpak player. He has been playing in England for a few seasons, so he could choose to go to England, but he decided to go to New Zealand. He sold his property near the Kruger National Park. He was, doing well in terms of being settled there. He sold off everything, property, car, and everything that he couldn't bring over to New Zealand, and just closed the South African chapter and started afresh in New Zealand. He got a few coaching gigs there, coaching 11 years old. He rose through the ranks of domestic cricket, and as fans, we are really happy to see this story play out in the way it did, and we are looking forward to seeing him in action in the next test, which will happen this week, and of course in the coming future as well. So that was my number 3 pick of the week. Let's move on to number 2 pick of the week for me. This is the legendary record-breaking Shelly Ann Fraser-Pryce, who became the second fastest woman this week with a timing of 10.63. Now, isn't that interesting? We just how's that for symmetry? We just saw 10.63 in Shifan Hassan's case when she shaved off that time of the existing world record, and here is Fraser-Pryce doing it in setting that record for the second fastest time in 100 meters. Now, this Jamaican sprint star, who is now 34-year-old, is no stranger to setting the world alight, right? So we know that she is a repeat gold medalist, winning it in 2008. In Beijing, and then becoming the first woman to defend it in 2012 London, and then coming out of injury and bagging the bronze medal in Rio. So we are really looking forward to seeing whether she can go one better and break Flojo, Florent Griffith-Joyner's long-standing record in the 1988 Seoul Olympics, where she clocked 10.49. Some say that it was under dubious circumstances, but we'll never know. So we really hope that Fraser-Pryce puts that in her bag and takes back another record-beating Flojo. So. With the number 2 pick out of the way, let's move on to the number 1 pick of the week, the final pick, the shining star of the week. And it is none other than Kawhi Leonard, the boardman Kawhi Leonard. Cometh the hour, cometh boardman. That's the motto for this week. He brought in his A game when it mattered the most. So he is someone who is who has shown that he can shine at the clutch moments. It started with his epic performance in Game 6. That was really amazing to watch against the Mavericks, against a resurgent and lone warrior Luka Doncic that we just discussed in our bench picks. In Game 6, he sort of brought in. He hit 70% of his shots. He scored 45 points, and the only other players to have done that are James, Jamal Murray, and Wilt Chamberlain. So he is in great company in terms of leading the team to victory at these clutch moments. And just like he did in Game 6, he led the score in game 7 as well. And for once, the home team did win a game. So in that series, all the games that had happened thus far, only the visiting team ended up winning it. So Leonard broke that streak. He spearheaded the Clippers on both ends of the floor. So he led the team with 28 points, 10 of 15 shooting. He had 10 rebounds, 9 assists, 4 steals, 1 block, and it was a showcase two-way performance. This, of course, eclipsed Luka Doncic 46 points because he didn't have support from his teammates, which the board man did have. And the matchup, so they now face the regular season Western Conference leaders, Jazz in the conference center. So that matchup is really an interesting one. Leonard and co against Donovan Mitchell and co, and we are really looking forward to seeing that. So that wraps up our top 5 plays and playmakers of the week. Do let us know what your top picks have been, and if you agree with us. If not, what do you think should have been the top pick of the week? And we will leave you with the parting shot of this week's action. Right. So if you watch the Formula One at race at Baku this weekend, you will recall how bizarre it was. It was one of the most one of the recent races that absolutely did not go as per script, and it was heartbreaking, especially if you are a Max Verstappen fan or a Red Bull fan, because he was leading comfortably with just 3 laps to go, and being the current championship leader, he seemed to have it all wrapped up. But then suddenly, out of the blue, on a straight, he crashed, and we later came to know that it was owing to some tire issues, and no wonder that he was angry and was kicking the tires after that happened. Now then, the safety car was called, and there were talks whether the race will be resumed or not. But the race was resumed, and a 3-lap shootout ensued after that. And it was all set on a platter for Lewis Hamilton. If he could score a podium position or even a win, he would edge out Verstappen in the. He would edge out Max in the championship points tally. But another bizarre thing, another amazing thing happened, that Hamilton crashed out on the restart because of a rare mistake that he made, and he went back to the 15th place on the grid. And 3 names that you don't hear on podium often these days, Perez, Vettel, and Gasly, they took the 1, 2, 3 positions. And our parting shot is Max recounting the madness as he lay on the bed for his medical checkup. So he was laying. He says that I was laying on that bed. They were checking my blood pressure, and suddenly my phone was vibrating because I thought, what's going on? Because I could hear the cars. He said to the F1 Sky F1 interviewers, and then he said that. Then I was done and I was allowed to leave, and saw my phone that Lewis had a problem on turn 1. My blood pressure, even with that text message, was absolutely fine. So he had a bit of fun with, it was a topsy-turvy day for him, in the sense that, of course, he was disappointed that he crashed out. But then later, when he realized that his closest opponent also crashed out, it was some sort of saving grace for him. Right. With that, we come to an end of this edition this week of Backyard Spin podcast. We will be back with next week, and there are so many exciting things on the cards in next week. Of course, the next test will start between New Zealand and England. There are already a lot of off the field things, banter happening for the World Test Championship that is slated later this month. Then we will head into the final weekend for French Open, Roland Garros, and Whether Nadal is going to win his 10,000th championship or not is something that we'll see. We are heading into the business end of the playoffs, where we already have a great semi-final lineup, and of course the Euros will start. So a lot of exciting stuff lined up for the coming week, and we'll be there to recap it in the next episode of the Backyard Spin Weekly, hopefully with a host there. So thank you for listening, and see you folks next week.